In a prior video, we talked about how Congress is attempting to make cuts to critical programs like Medicaid, all to give more tax cuts to the rich. Congress is now using the budget reconciliation process to bypass normal obstacles in Congress, to pass legislation to cut Medicaid and other vital programs. Today, let's talk about the budget reconciliation process in more detail. This is an incredibly confusing process, with several steps, many separate votes, and a lot of really confusing rules that limit how it can and cannot be used. This information should help to clear up some confusion about what has happened so far, where Congress is in the process, and how we can stop these Medicaid cuts from happening. The budget reconciliation process starts with each House passing a budget resolution. A budget resolution is a non-binding resolution that Congress passes, the President does not need to sign it, that sets spending targets for the upcoming fiscal year. Budget resolutions can include special sections in them called reconciliation instructions. Reconciliation instructions are instructions for the different policy committees in Congress to draft legislation that will change spending in areas that the committee oversees. These committees are then tasked with drafting bills that would meet these spending goals. For example, the budget resolutions that were passed by both the House and Senate both instruct the House Energy and Commerce Committee to cut spending in areas under its control by $880 billion over the next 10 years. This committee is the committee that has primary jurisdiction over Medicaid, and Medicaid makes up a large chunk of the spending that the committee oversees. This is why Medicaid cuts are so likely to happen, because they can't meet this goal without cutting Medicaid. Once all the committees are done drafting their changes to meet the goals of the budget resolution, these changes are then combined into one big reconciliation package. This package has fast-track status in Congress, which means that debate on the bill is limited, and the minority party in the Senate cannot filibuster the bill. A filibuster is the ability of the minority party in the Senate to require that any bill earn 60 votes instead of the 51 it would normally require in order to pass. So the ability to bypass a filibuster makes budget reconciliation the best opportunity for the majority party to force major parts of its agenda through Congress. Once the package is completed, it must be voted on by the House of Representatives before it moves to the Senate. Once it gets over to the Senate, however, things become a little bit trickier. In the Senate, there are several steps that the bill will need to go through before it can be voted on and passed, steps that don't happen in the House. So to be clear, while budget reconciliation is a powerful tool that the majority can use to pass their agenda, there are limits to what it can be used for. All of the changes in a reconciliation package, for example, must directly impact the budget. There can't be any policy changes that are unrelated to the budget. Changes made by a reconciliation package, in addition, cannot increase the deficit beyond a 10-year window. There are also certain subjects that a reconciliation package cannot legally touch. For example, you cannot change Social Security with a reconciliation bill. Collectively, these limits are called the Byrd Rule, after former U.S. Senator Robert Byrd, who established a lot of them. And once the reconciliation package goes to the Senate, the minority party does have the opportunity to challenge different parts of the reconciliation bill. They'll make a ruling as to whether the challenge section passes the Byrd Rule or not. If it doesn't, that section will be removed from the reconciliation bill. Though it rarely happens, the Senate can choose to vote to overrule the parliamentarian's decision. After the reconciliation package finishes its bird bath, the Senate votes on it. And if any changes are made, which there almost always are in the Senate, the House will then need to vote and approve the Senate version before it goes to the President to be signed into law. Now, I understand that this is a lot of information. You might be asking, what does this matter? Well, it matters because understanding this process is really important because many members of Congress are using the technicalities of this process to mislead and confuse people. They're claiming that they don't actually want to cut Medicaid and that they haven't actually voted for any Medicaid cuts. And here's the thing. That's technically true. Some of these members didn't vote for Medicaid cuts yet. What they did do, however, is approve a budget resolution that starts the process that will ultimately lead to Medicaid cuts. You see that little sleight of hand going on there? Congressional members are trying to hide their votes behind technicalities to avoid accountability, and we cannot let them get away with it. Right now, we are at the second stage of the reconciliation process. The House and the Senate have both passed their budget resolutions, and the relevant committees have started drafting their changes for reconciliation to be added in a final bill. So technically, no Medicaid cuts have been voted on yet. But the process of drafting the fast-tracked bill that will ultimately cut Medicaid has already begun. Congress wants to process in May, so we don't have a lot of time. If you oppose Congress taking away health coverage from millions of people, this is your opportunity to take action with us. Use our hotline at 202-978-5357 to call your member of Congress and tell them, hands off of Medicaid.